Okay, so I was just telling people that you have four boys and a daughter,
Yeah.
and I was talking. I briefly mentioned what disability they have, but I'm going to go into a little bit more. So, of course, I saw you for the first time on the Special Books for Special Kids episode that you guys did, which was super helpful. And I think for a couple of reasons, I think because it gave more diversity to FASD, the face of FASD, but also because your boys are incredibly handsome and they just look like regular guys, right? So
Right, definitely.
um, it helped kind of demystify that idea in our head that kids with FASD look different.
Right.
Um, so FASD is fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. It's the most common form of developmental disabilities affecting 5% of the population, which makes it 2.5 times as common as autism. But because there's a causal factor for it, we know what causes FASD, it's very stigmatized. And
Yes.
so we hear a lot of myths like, it takes like a lot of alcohol to cause FASD, or if you have FASD, you're small. That's not the
Mhm.
case with any of your kids.
Definitely.
um, there are a lot of just like grand ideas as to how FASD affects kids, and it's a spectrum, right? It's a spectrum
Right.
disorder,
Right.
so it all looks very different. And so I know a lot of times when you go in and you're going to advocate for a kid who has this diagnosis or even a suspected diagnosis, because it's rarely diagnosed,
Yeah.
doctors, professionals, teachers, whatever, they have like this like, I don't like what's happening here, because
Right.
clearly there was bad choices that were made on somebody's
Mhm.
part, and I'm trying to figure out who to blame for this situation here. We can't just help address the symptoms, we have to deal with the causal factor, which makes
Definitely.
FASD unique. So being a Black woman, already having discriminatory issues in how society functions, how does talking about FASD for your kids add to that?
Well, I would say that because of everything that's going on in the world right now and the way that the movement is with the Black Lives Matter and the treatment with the police and everything that's going on, after doing our interview, it was a very short awareness for the people around us. It was really short lived of what fetal alcohol syndrome is. And I found that in some instances, instead of opening up doors, it actually kind of closed some doors because people felt like, well, if their mother wasn't drinking, then they wouldn't be like that. You know,
Right.
um, well, if she wasn't, like, even in some of the comments, people not understanding, fully the situation. Well, why would you drink like that? And then I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
having to expose the fact that they're not my biological sons,
Right.
but that I still want to be there for them. It's becoming a little bit more difficult. Um, I would definitely like to be able to raise more awareness regarding, fetal alcohol syndrome, and also everything that comes from fetal alcohol syndrome. So that was the basis for my son's diagnoses, but they also have microcephaly, which makes their brain small. They also have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Two of them have ODD, and
Mm-hmm.
the oldest has fetal alcohol syndrome, and he's autistic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like putting all those things together. You would hope that people would have, um, a better response and a bigger understanding of what's going on, but that has not been the case.
Yeah, what you're saying does not shock me at all. Being an advocate, obviously, I hear that kind of stuff all the time, and it's. I just posted a little while ago about how foster and adoptive parents, you don't have to put like this disclaimer on it, like these
Right,
aren't my biological kids,
right,
because every
right,
time you do that, you add to the stigma that
right,
that's a shaming thing. And so your experience is exactly the same, right? And the
right,
more often we can go in and say, these are my kids, period, and almost like
right.
stare people down, like, go ahead, question
Yeah,
me right now,
right,
then we can break down that barrier, because you see me as a person, you don't see me as an
right.
addict. So like, And until we have birth control 100% preventable, like recovery centers on every corner,
Yes.
you know, like really great labeling on alcohol, we cannot say that FASD is 100% preventable. It's just not.
Right.
And so we're in this world of reality where it is going to happen. So how do we then support the kids that are affected by prenatal alcohol exposure instead of bringing up all of the how and the why? That really doesn't matter. And our goal for other forms of neurodiversity like ADHD and autism is to not talk about the how. Like, it doesn't matter how we got here, right? We're helping the kids today.
That's a big thing. That's a big thing in our household, you know, because of the different types of disabilities that they have. It definitely weighs heavily because there are a bunch of places for autism, you know, and that's more accepted. Oh, he has autism. Oh, okay, well, fine. Well, we'll go ahead and take him. But what did you say the rest have? Oh, fetal alcohol syndrome. Oh, so does that just mean that someone was drinking? Oh, so they didn't have to be that way? And it's definitely more dismissed. You know, it's like, whatever. But I feel like the same outrage that people have over HIV, it's the same as fetal alcohol syndrome. You know, people have HIV because, you know, majority of them chose to enter into sexual intercourse, and these things happen. Outside of, you know, children that were born with HIV, you know, most of these situations, you know, could have been something that might have been prevented, but no one's going around telling them, hey, well, you should have had sex and then you would be okay, you know.
Right.
It's campaigns going on, you know, there's trucks everywhere, you know, to prevent HIV. And now there's pills to take and everything is okay, you know. And I just wish that there was more resources, you know, for my children and what they have to experience with their different conditions.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that if we can, and I've run into this a couple times where I go to talk to somebody about something and they're like, well, if it was autism, this would be a different conversation.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, but like the symptom overlap for autism and FASD are nearly identical. The presentation is often very different, and sometimes not very different, but often. But the symptoms and the need and the interventions, the different things that we have to do to help these kids are very similar. And so if we're saying this would be helpful for autistic kids, not always is it helpful for kids with FASD, but we don't want to assume that it's not. And just because you don't know anything about FASD doesn't mean that you get to totally write us off. But that being said, I had a timer for my laundry that just went off. With FASD being 2.5 times as common as autism, if we can have these conversations about autism, which that community has fought really hard for awareness, and I feel like we're like making a lot of progress as well. But if we can have these conversations about how we can help kids with autism, then we can have these conversations about how we can help kids with FASD. But this stigma is always what gets in the way.
Right, most definitely. And so I see your work and I think like that it's amazing, and I really wish that, you know, there were more resources and advocacy down here. I wish that I didn't have this super huge workload that I decided to take on recently. I just became a substitute teacher for ESC students, so the children with disability down here. And I don't know what I was thinking. So, you know, because I'm going to do that at school and then I come home to the house school, you know, but I know why I'm doing it. And it's because I was really feeling like my children are being left behind, you know, since the video, Jalen, you know, he will be 18 this year. Our oldest son, Ray, you know, he just turned 19. Our son Kevon, you know, this year he'll be 17 in November. And all those are big because they're all about to be grown and in a world that does not accept them and will not say, oh, well, let's give him a pass because he has fetal alcohol syndrome. Or like you said, they don't look like they have any type of issues. And that's going to be a big thing. recently, Tyler, he had a soccer game, our youngest boy, and there was like a fight at the soccer game. And they had the children signing different statements and writing different statements and things like that. And they didn't notify the parent. And I'm like, well, if my son is having issues, reading and comprehending, how can you be having him write statements and things like that and signing them, without notifying a parent? I need to read through that. I need to know, he would say yes, to anything,
Yes.
get up and go.
Right.
And that's kind of a fear going forward, even with law enforcement. And when they're getting pulled over and if they have to be asked any type of questions, and when the police say, oh, well, we'll read them their rights, but does that mean they comprehend those rights? You're just talking and saying I'm doing it, but then what? So it's big now that they're about to, become adults, and it's scary.
Yeah. It's
scary because you want to let them go, but at the same time, you see the direction that the world is going in, and it's almost like they're being discriminated against all over again.
Yeah.
And now they have a fear of already being Black, and now they have to have a fear of their disability, where other people's disabilities are accepted. If you have Down syndrome, then it's, hey, we got this resource for you, and everything is all good. Even down to some of, the really worst disability. Like if a child has a rare disability, then it's a $100,000 GoFundMe, and it's a let me go ahead and send this out, and let's do. Tim Tebow has a whole foundation, but everyone's leaving out the disability that are inside of my home. There's no fetal alcohol syndrome foundation. There's no raise awareness about protecting the babies and figuring out what's going on with these mothers, that they're drinking, or even, like you said, one glass a week and something messes up and now your child has the same condition. Since there's no scale of, well, this little bit won't hurt your child or this much will, then it's like all the way across the board. I think there should be more campaigning and more things, done for these disabilities.
Well, right. And even education starting in school. So because, most women don't know they're pregnant until 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And so if you're a social drinker to begin with, like it's really like just, and a few years ago, the CDC put out that any woman of childbearing age should just not drink. And I was like, that did not go over well.
Right.
So because we have like our birth control is just like, it's not 100%, because we have so many women who don't know that they're pregnant at the time, with 50% of pregnancies being unplanned. But there's also just this lack of awareness, and that's both from physicians, because doctors are telling women that it's safe to drink in small amounts. Oh no, it's fine. A glass of wine a week. It's even healthy, but that study was done. It's healthy for mom, not for baby, which is a big misnomer. So I've given some, like education materials to like high school health teachers, hoping that we can start educating children, but not that far from being adults, young enough that they understand that this is alcohol. Institute of Medicine report to Congress in 1996 said that alcohol is by far has the worst neurobehavioral effects on the fetus. Worse than drugs. And in our head, when we think about effects on the fetus, we think about drugs. We don't think about alcohol.
Alcohol.
When you were talking about the kids and law enforcement interaction, this reminds me of some of the symptoms of FASD and what that looks like. So if we have a law enforcement interaction with our kids, obviously concerns are like we have slow processing pace, right? Like, so you're going to tell me to do something, do it now, and I can't respond that quickly. That you're going to ask me to do something and I don't understand necessarily what you're saying, and maybe I even laugh because I'm kind of confused.
Oh, God.
And now it's disrespectful, right? So there are symptoms that if our kids like I have a disability tattooed all over their face, then maybe they would get some sympathy. But as it is, it just looks like they're being rude. And there's so much tension on disrespect and making sure that we're being respectful in those kind of interactions.
Definitely.
It's not disrespectful if it's part of your disability. So helping raise awareness with law enforcement. I think that this happens in school. We know a lot about the school to prison pipeline for kids. So for Black youth being over disciplined, if you have a disability, I find that it's very rare that schools will be like, you know what, this kid is always acting out in reading class. I wonder if they have a hard time reading. We should check on their brain to see if they have something going on. Right. I don't see that a lot. I see parents fighting for that, but I don't see a lot of schools like being preemptive on that, although they do have an obligation under IDEA to do that. So I see a lot of kids that are being labeled as bad kids.
Oh, definitely. Or getting written off, suspended. You know, currently Jalen is home right now. He's not able to go back to school. He has to do forced homeschool. And that's a big issue because sending a ESC student home to do online work and, you know, obviously he's in ESC for a reason. You know, there's extra help and resources there for a reason. And because of his different behaviors, you know, he's not able to go into class. But I'm like, okay, well, are you guys going to send a parent home with him then? Is somebody going to
come so that's so interesting because they actually don't get to say, I don't want to parent you because of your disability. That's federal requirement that they parent or they educate every child. Right.
And so it's just like, I feel that this 9 weeks, you know, has put him behind a lot. You know, and he's in his 11th grade year. School will be out in May. He'll have 1 more year of high school, and I don't even have a direction to send him in. You know, getting a lot of pressure, about what you're going to do after high school and what are you going to do after high school. Well, my son is graduating high school with the first grade reading level, so I don't know what he's going to do after high school.
Right.
You know, I don't know what is going to happen or what direction should I put him in. But with more resources, I feel like maybe there could have been vocational rehab in place for him, you know. And we do have voc rehab down here, but everything's so limited.
Yeah.
You know, everything is so limited. And especially there's a lot of bias inside of my house because people can't believe you have 4 children with fetal alcohol syndrome.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah. So that's a big bias for us. You know, they're like, everybody doesn't have a problem. I'm like, well, yes, actually, everybody does. You know, that's how it goes, you know. And with even me with my PTSD. So a lot of people are like, you know, that's the crazy house, you know. And so it creates a lot less, you know, resources. And it just leaves you stuck.
I think you're saying there's people are not empathetic at all, it sounds like.
Oh no, we don't get that at all.
Yeah.
No. I would definitely say not at all. I know down here in Jacksonville, Florida, I can't speak on a lot of other places, but just being here in Jacksonville, Florida, and being originally from California, I can tell that there's a big difference between the services that my children will be able to get in California and the services that they're getting here in Jacksonville, which are slim to none, you know, slim to none. Even through Medicaid, you know, people are like, well, call Medicaid. I'm sure they can do this, this, and this. And no, they can't, you know, and they tell you. I actually really feel like pretty much they just push things off until the child turns 18 so that they don't have to pay for the stuff. Like, that's how I feel.
Right, because then everything is solved in adulthood.
Yes. Now it's like move on to some, now they don't qualify for that, so now you got to find something else now. They're over 18. And you're like, I've been petitioning for help for 2 years now, you know.
Yeah.
This waiting list is full or this resource isn't there. So it is definitely a big challenge, and just knowing where to start it's just frustrating. But I really appreciate you reaching out. Like, I totally see you like all the time. I want to move down there so that I can just be next door to you and we can just do this together.
I actually lived in Jacksonville for a little bit.
So then you already know, like, there's absolutely nothing down here. As far as resource-wise, like, after I did the interview with SBSK, you know, people were like, hey, I know all these resources. And then every time they hit me up, they're like, we're in Alaska and we're in Canada.
Oh,
And
right. Yeah, yeah.
and I'm like, oh, well, thank you guys. But right here in Jacksonville, they're like, well, you don't have the such and such resource. And I got the this and this and this. And I'm like, yeah, no, we've never heard of any of that. Like,
Yeah, it's so state and even county dependent. So I live in Ohio,
yes,
and there are other people in other parts of Ohio that don't have what I have. So
yes.
yes, I absolutely, yes, that is a big battle, and it's hard to even support each other in that way.
Yes, definitely, definitely. It's heartbreaking because I know that me and my children are not the only ones down here going through this.
Right.
But not being able to have, a group or people that you can talk to and share business. Maybe there is another parent that's down here that knows what I'm going through and might have a undercover source that I might not have been able to tap into. The lack of even communication within a fetal alcohol syndrome community is something that's big.
Yeah.
We see a lot of autism groups, Down syndrome groups. To me, those two are like huge. Like,
Yeah.
the support for them, but I feel like it's like you said, because you can see those things.
Yeah.
Children with autism, they act a certain way, move a certain way. Children with Down syndrome, or even adults with these same conditions, have something that you can see, and they're like, oh, well, this. And even as they say it, oh, that person might have Down syndrome, their heart changes, But
yeah.
you look at someone, you're like, oh, he got fetal alcohol syndrome. Oh, that means his mom was drinking.
Yeah.
Oh, dang, his mama shouldn't have been drinking all that liquor then, But the truth is that, to me, even that's 50-50. What if the mom was like just some depressed woman, what I'm saying, who didn't have the resources that she needed, which is not the case with my children. But, that does happen, and maybe somebody knew that she was drinking or was watching her drink and just decided, don't say nothing. Because people frown upon the pregnant women who you see outside smoking a cigarette,
Yes. Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, they're smoking and they're pregnant. I can't believe it. Why would she do that to the baby? Secondhand smoke. And it's like, oh, but she's having a glass of Chardonnay and, oh, that's for her blood. She'll be fine. She'll be fine,
Yeah, so I'm a big believer that no woman drinks with the intention of harming her child. There are one of three reasons. One, she didn't know she was pregnant. Two, her doctors, it wasn't safe. Doctors are recommending it all the time. And then three, she has substance use disorder and couldn't just quit. And we don't do a good job of giving resources. And we think addiction looks a certain way. And it's, with it, basically we picture addiction as being drugs. And like, unless you're coming in high, then I don't think that you're addicted to anything. And so we don't have the resources in place to help women. So the stigma and the shame is the biggest barrier to our kids getting more services, because people don't know and they don't want to be curious and empathetic. But that's a lot of what I hear you saying, is that just bringing it up, already people put up a barrier, and then
definitely
it's hard to get past that.
Definitely, because they just like you said, just not enough educate. Even in school, when you're learning about people, they tell you, well, this person might be different and what it's going to look like. But I don't remember ever being at school and learning about hidden disabilities. Never once has anybody sat down and even down to depression. No one had explained that you can be smiling and still be depressed.
Yep.
I have friends, growing up in foster care who were fine one day and then they were dead the next. And it was like, well, hey, Alyssa, she was just smiling and playing with us, but we had no idea what Alyssa was going through, And I don't know, I'm thinking like maybe I should make some bracelets or something. I'm so not creative, but something that I would like to share with the world, with the fetal alcohol syndrome community. Maybe, they have like the little necklaces for people with diabetes and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe something so that police and other people are aware of the fetal alcohol syndrome, because like you said, if they can't see it, and even my own children, I tell them do the dishes, they move like snails, and I have to snap, like, hey, come on, guys, get that brain moving. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, if the cop is standing next to them, hey, license, registration, well, let's go. Or you got a flashlight, or you got a gun up, or something like that. They're going to be fumbling through stuff. They might pick up a cell phone. You just never know. So having something to be able to for other people to see, okay, you know, let me slow down, or let me, you know, do something different. Then
yeah, I'm a big fan of medical alert bracelets for our kids.
right,
Unfortunately, I can't say that we should put FASD on there because people don't know what it is. And in the moment, in that kind of moment, I need you to know exactly what we're working with here. So what I was advised by law enforcement to put on the bracelet was special needs.
Okay.
That's what people recognize and have empathy for, because even PTSD, a lot of police officers don't believe that childhood PTSD is a thing.
Oh,
so you can't even reference that. So special needs is the one. So special needs, mom, number, bam, and then hoping that there's enough pause to see that. And
even with that, yes, like you said, like, just, I don't know, it's scary. And it's just, where do you start? You know, like I said, that's why I really admire what you're doing. Like, regardless of, you know, whatever, you know, you're there, and you know, you're putting in the time. And I just wish that you had a broader, you know, setting, and people could help more and see more, you know, because until that interview, I didn't even know there were people out there advocating, you know, for fetal alcohol syndrome, you know. And without that, I wouldn't even known you, you know, because, you know, like I said, no one I felt very alone, you know. It was definitely always, you know, being turned down or undermined, you know, about their disability. And even now, you know, as like I said, they're about to be grown, you know, because of the laws, but obviously they're like 13 in the head. So that's like a lot of work right there. You know, the transition, what do you do next? And just so basically resources. So people are watching our live and they're out there and they're listening. I'm hoping that they're taking it and that they will share it and that they will understand how this is a big issue. And although a doctor might say it's okay to drink or whatever, everybody's body is different. So your one glass of wine might do nothing to me, but to someone else, you know, that one glass might be enough to trigger the microcephaly in the child, or trigger the low birth rate, or the ADHD or ADD, whatever it is, you know. And sometimes those things don't even manifest till the child is 5 or 6, you know. And so the whole time you're thinking everything is fine, you know. I've had my drink, and now you're telling your friends, you know, well, yeah, you know,
it's fine.
I was drinking, and look at my child, you know, she's fine, and or he's fine, you know, and then now they're going to go drink, and their body is different from yours, and now they done had 2 glasses, and now their child has an issue, you know, so.
Yeah, so we know that prenatal alcohol exposure is a different risk level based on maternal genetics and also fetal genetics. So I have several friends who have twins, and they're affected differently. And sometimes even one twin cannot be affected. Clearly, it's the same amount of alcohol, but there's just so many things at play. The overarching message is this is not a rare disability. This is incredibly common. Although you may have been the only person that you knew, that's realistically not, like, of the people you run into, there were definitely people who had effects of prenatal alcohol exposure, but it wasn't diagnosed because we don't talk about it and yada, yada, yada. But we hopefully will come together as a community and do a better job of supporting each other and advocating on a broader scale versus all doing our own little pockets everywhere.
Right. Definitely. If we can all come together, that would be awesome. Definitely.
Well, thanks so much for joining me and chatting about this important but stigmatized thing. And we will stay connected. Thank you so much.
Yes, no, thank you for reaching out and your work. I hope you never get discouraged, you know, like I know,
can't say that will happen.
But I know, but you know, not discouraged enough to stop, because you know, you're really inspiring other people. And once I get my life together, I'm definitely going to sit down and do the same. Right? I'm definitely going to do the same. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye.